I have with me tonight for his first show as NCL Player Ambassador, John McGill. John, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Why are you a Player Ambassador? Why are you here? How were you voluntold, etc.?
Great, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I first of all, I want to encourage anybody else that's out there that's listening or viewing that there is still a Player Ambassador spot open. So if you like seeing this kind of content and want to be part of creating that content, or if you want to be more involved in the National Cyber League, or possibly even you've graduated out of doing the cyber games, and you still want to be part of the National Cyber League like me, this is a great opportunity. So go ahead and shoot CryptoKate a application, and we'll go ahead and take a look at those. And we still have one spot open, so it'd be great.
Yeah, we have a couple of slots open. We're not locking it down to just one. It's really just based on the applicants that come in. I did voluntold my first 3 people. These are people who have either helped me behind the scenes for a long time. I mean, somebody stole a title I gave him for his workshop at 3CS. That was supposed to be the title of his first NCL Facebook Live show, but use it where you will. So John has been sort of a sounding board for me for a long time. Gina's worked with me for longer than just about anybody else in NCL. And then Fee, who you're going to hopefully meet in the next few weeks. We met at WESIS, and they were a really pivotal moment for me when I realized that this could be something more. So they were sort of voluntold, but we are still accepting people. We still want to make this board as wonderful as it can be. So right now I'm waiting for applications to come in. I think we're going to be accepting applications for at least the rest of August. We'll get a final date for you guys very, very soon. So be on the lookout for our closeout date for this season, and then we'll select a couple more player ambassadors. Then every season we'll look to add 2 or 3 new people to the team so that you get to see fresh faces, fresh ideas, and new introductions to concepts. So John, what is your background in NCL?
So I was sorry, my computer's being I have a new setup for me. So yeah, so I started out actually I got out of the Navy, and I was a veteran, and I needed a place to kind of revamp my skills a little bit and kind of figure out what I wanted to do with how I was part of my transition story, so to speak. So I went to a community college. That's the Tidewater Community College, shout out. And I was able to get a hold of some really good content, but I felt like we needed more. So we founded a cybersecurity club in addition to just a regular curriculum that we were getting, and through that we decided that we were going to set a goal of going to competitions and that kind of thing. Well, we found the National Cyber League, and at first we were a little bit intimidated, national, and we were just trying to do things at the regional level. But we decided that was going to be one of our major events, and so we used the National Cyber League as training through the gymnasium to kind of work on our skills together, and then we all came together for the postseason and put together a great team, and we did really, really well in our first season. So that's now become kind of an institution for us as far as Tidewater Community College, and us constantly looking for competition. But National Cyber League is probably one of the easiest platforms to get on, and yeah, I just kind of clung to it, and I stuck with it for about 5 seasons. In the process of that, I did seek out some mentoring, and Kate knows a little bit about that, and that's how Kate and I kind of met. Is I was looking for a mentor, and she was starting up her blog and everything about the same. Well, she'd already established her blog, but I found it, and yeah, so it had exactly what I was looking for, and I guess the rest, as they say, is history, right?
Yeah. So John, you posted your first guest post on my blog this week called Tina says hi. Called Building Your Virtual Playground, Setting Up Your VMs for the National Cyber League Games, and what is your operating system of choice for the National Cyber League Games?
Well, that's a really good question, and I think that that's common out actually in the cybersecurity industry also, is that you can't really lock yourself down to just one tool, one operating system, or one kind of a mode of thought. Especially in kind of that last one's a dangerous one too, because you've got to learn to kind of think a little bit from different points of view. So I find that using kind of a crossbreed of Cali Linux and Windows works pretty well for me. I come from a pretty deep Windows background, and so using tools like Excel to go through logs is easier for me than grep and awk and sed and the Linux tools. Those are getting easier for me. But and I always try to challenge myself a little bit every time to use a little bit more Linux and a little less Windows. Just to kind of perfect my skills. But honestly, we all reach back to that tool that works the best for us, and there is no right or wrong way to do it.
I can totally agree with that. So I just realized that the laptop I grabbed super last minute for the show doesn't have an activated version of Windows. So as we dive into John's demo tonight, you're going to notice my obnoxious, please go activate your Windows. John, I can't disappear and talk. So I'm going to disappear so the screen's real big, and you can take it away and sort of walk them through. You've got to share your screen.
Okay. Gotta do that again. Here we go. All right, you should see Google screen, yeah?
Delay, but I see Google. I don't know why the screen doesn't see Google.
Well, the delay is not quite as bad as I expected.
It's not terrible. Okay, so I'm going to drop down so that you guys have a full view of John's demonstration. And I'll even try to get rid of the comment. There we go. I'm going to make this as big as possible. And then I'm watching your guys' comments and questions, so I will throw them up on the screen. John, are you able to see when the comments go up on the broadcast?
I can if I'm paying attention to it. So I'll try to split focus and do both.
I'll just hop back in the video for a minute and make sure that your guys' questions are heard. So feel free to post the questions in the comments. So put your comments and questions, and John's going to do his demo, and I will pop up to make your questions heard.
All right, great, thank you. And I am watching these comments come in, and to Jennifer Boyd, Virginia Beach, that's definitely where we're from, and I love it. Matthew Barr, Navy, and also I see a comment here for Joe Lynn Welsh, go Navy. Absolutely. So I definitely appreciate the the support and everything there. If we have time tonight, I have a little dog. Maybe I can bring that one on too, and just make a dog show out of this. But I know you guys love Azina, and it's great to get involved with all this. And okay, so no further ado. Let's go ahead and get into this. So we're going to talk about.
We can always show pets. And Zena runs the Pupper Ambassador board, so we always accept applications for Pupper Ambassadors and Cat Ambassadors and Lizard Ambassadors, and whatever pet you may have, we have Pet Ambassadors as well.
Awesome. And hope I was okay not using her hacker name. So actually, I have to correct myself on that. Privacy.
Zena goes by both. She does.
Okay. I hope I didn't dox your dog.
I mean. Maybe she has a secret identity even I don't know about. Let's be real, she's more popular than me. Jolynn Welch does have a question for us. What is the best Linux tutorials you would recommend for noobs?
Wow, and that's a really great question. Part of the problem in this field especially is that there is so much material. I mean, I've probably got 20 different bookmarks on Linux things. Of course, I did take a Linux class at my community college, and that's kind of how I got my start. However, I think that there is a lot to be said for using Red Hat Linux, as a training platform, because I feel like that's kind of the way to get it right, so to speak. And there's a lot of things that carry over from Red Hat over to Debian Linux, which is what Linux is actually kind of based on. So certainly any kind of Debian tutorials or anything with Debian, that's what you're looking for there, because that's the flavor of Linux that Cali is built on. As far as actual tutorials on,
the good news is we're writing one later this season. That's one of our coaching guide that's going to come out on a Pro Tip Tuesday and a Thursday Night Live. So that's a great question, and we hope you'll come back to it in a couple of weeks when we post that content. We're going to do an introduction to Linux command line and PowerShell.
Yeah, and that'll definitely cover quite a bit of it. I know that I personally have solved a few challenges, using good old command shell, or using some scripting tools, or even a bash, script in order to kind of put things together. So I think that really, when you say Linux tutorials, you have to be a little bit more precise and say, I want to learn bash scripting. I want to learn command line, examples. And narrow your focus, because again, this is such a wide field and there's so much information out there. The tighter your focus can be. I personally just put together a calendar and I said I'm going to learn this topic on this day, and then this day, and then this day, and I put myself together a kind of learning calendar. Red Hat is actually thanks for that. Red Hat is actually a distribution of Linux. It's a
It's like an operating system. It's like your Windows flavor. Do you use Windows 7, Windows 10?
Exactly. Yeah.
Are you using a Windows Server platform for your virtual machine?
Exactly. So Red Hat is an operating system, if you want to be absolutely technical about it. It's definitely not a website, but there is websites that talk all about Red Hat and how to use it. So thanks for the comment there, Lauren. All right, so let's see. How about a few web sorts for Linux tutorials? I'm going to get back to you on that. I don't want to give you, I want to make sure that it's kind of tailored to the audience, and we are going to specialize that a little bit later. Perhaps I can kind of drop that in the comments section a little bit later. I had to do some research. I don't want to take your time up to do that, so.
But what we are going to do is, John, you're about to walk everyone through how to build a Cali VM. Why do we use VMs in competition? What's the purpose of a VM?
Okay, so exactly. And that's kind of what I put as the title of my blog this week was, why do I want a virtual machine? And really the easiest way for me to explain that is, think of a sandbox, right? You have all these toys in the sandbox, and whatever happens in the sandbox, you want to stay in the sandbox. So if you want to, run a this is actually common again in the industry, as most of these National Cyber League challenges they kind of are trying to prepare you for industry and how you would use this stuff in the real world. And in the real world, we use these virtual machines for a couple different reasons. It's cheaper. Instead of trying to buy a completely new box for every single type of thing you want to do, you can use one actual physical hardware and then put several different virtual machines on that hardware. It's easier than using a dual boot because that way you don't have to completely recycle your computer every time you want to jump back and forth. And then sandboxing is important because some of the challenges might require that you download an executable. And when you're trying to reverse engineer that executable, I mean, it's not, you have no idea if it's safe, really. And in the real world, you certainly don't know when you're trying to reverse engineer things, especially if it's malware or something like that. You don't want that to be affecting your operating system at all. Another thing that I find, and especially for Linux, beginning, you can screw up your operating system pretty quickly. I tried to install like a SE Linux, which is like the secure part of that, and I got halfway through it, got over my head, tried to back it out. I corrupted the entire operating system. So with virtual boxes, what you can do is just hit the reset button. The last time that you did a snapshot of that box, you could recover completely back to it. And I find that that's really, really helpful, especially when you're, just starting and you are a little bit nervous to try some of these commands, or you're a little bit, not sure if you're going to hang your machine, or if you run something that you've never ran before, or if you just want to try something new. It's really easy to spin up a virtual machine and then destroy that machine at the end of your sandbox session. And so those are all really good reasons why you might want a virtual machine. Also, it allows me to do things like put Linux on Windows, or Mac on Windows, or Mac on Mac or Windows on Windows or Linux on Linux. I mean, the combinations are kind of limitless there. So there's a lot of tools that are written for Linux. Or you might be required to set up Java or Python or some of those environments like that in order to support your tools. And you don't want to put all that on your host machine, because then it leaves all these kind of programs that are just taking up room. Another big thing is for like Wireshark or using any kind of dangerous tools like that, they often come with a lot of vulnerabilities. So you're actually opening up your host VM to a lot of vulnerability by putting on some of these hacking tools, right? So in the sandbox, you can play with whatever you want. And another thing is some of the tools sometimes will flag with your antivirus or with your malware scanners, and they won't allow you to install them. So in a sandbox, you don't have to worry about all that. You don't even install antivirus because it can't get out of the sandbox. So then you don't have all the conflicts with trying to set things up. I know that a really basic tool is called Cane Enable, and it's really good for Windows NT LM hashes and that kind of thing. But my virus scanner will not let me put it anywhere near my machine. So sometimes spinning up a virtual machine that is deliberately insecure will give you a target to a hack, or it will give you the ability to run tools that your regular system won't allow you to.
Cane is one of my favorite tools. It is the first way that I figured out what the heck password cracking was, and I highly recommend it. It takes setting up a Windows 7 VM. You can install it past Windows 7, and you have to disable the firewall permissions on your virtual machine, which you do not want to do on your host machine because it could open you up to a lot of vulnerabilities. So John's point is spot on the money. Like, there are tools that are just like fan favorites, and you want to put them in an environment where it's safe for them to run without the potential to mess up a computer that you might actually want to use again. With that, I'm gonna scooch John along and tell him to start his demo. What we're going to do is he's going to build a virtual machine, a Cali Linux virtual machine from scratch. I think you have to share your screen again. I think it just disconnected on my end. So as soon as he gets that back up, I'm going to pop that up. I'm going to disappear again. I'm still here watching your comments. I see a lot of people mentioning Raspberry Pis, and that's super great, but not everybody has access to that hardware. You have to special order that, whereas this is something you can do right on a computer that you already have. So let's see how to build a Cali VM, and then if you have questions specifically about the Pi, we can go into those after the initial demo. So I'm going to do that.
Okay, great, thanks. So yeah, there's a couple things that we need to go over real quick as far as building up a Cali box, a virtual machine. And the first thing that I want to cover is actually where to get the Cali images from, and we're going to reference this a couple different times. So here I'm going to go to cali.org, and our website of Offensive Security. You can see Cali by Offensive Security here, and they actually do have their own tutorials on how to do this. So if whatever reason what I'm saying doesn't work for you, there's different people, and they explain things differently. Sometimes in an easier way for you to get it. As you can tell here, you can run Kali Linux in the cloud. You can run it on a Docker container. You can run it as part of the Windows subsystem for Linux, or WSL2. Or you can run it on a dual boot. I mean, there's so many different ways to get Kali, but we're going to run it as a virtual machine. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to their downloads. Now, if you look here on this page, it's going to break it up, first of all, by 64-bit or 32-bit. That's one thing I can't do for you. I don't know what your hardware is. So if you're running an older machine, it's probably 32-bit, 64-bit would be your newer machines. So you want to make sure you download the exact right version for what you're doing. But if you're downloading...
How do you find out which one you're running?
Let me see here. Let me just check this here real quick. I'm working on it. All right. So what I'm doing here is I'm opening up system information. hopefully I'm not exposing too much to the world here, but what you'll see here is 64-bit right here, 64-bit, x64 based PC. This is one way to do it if you're using Windows.
How do you get to that window?
Sorry about that. You're going to type in, just hit your little start button here, and then type in and hit system information, and it'll bring up this nice screen. All right, so that's going to tell you also what kind of 64-bit or 32-bit. Yeah. The other thing that you're going to want to kind of grab here is going to be what processor you use, whether it's Intel or it'll be AMD. That will be a thing that you're going to want to know when you go back to this screen and download your virtual machine. So as you can tell here, there's all these different builds. Now these are if you want to install Cali natively on your box, from bare metal. These are not the images that you're going to want. You're going to scroll down a little bit here, and on the bottom here, you're going to see VMware and Virtualbox. So what VMware is a hypervisor. Same thing with Virtualbox. These are hypervisors. A hypervisor is what hosts the virtual machine. It's a piece of software you're going to install on your computer, and then when you have it installed, then you can import a virtual machine, and that will allow it to launch that machine in its own little address space and have dedicated processor power and everything to it. It creates the sandbox. So this is what you're going to want is one of these hypervisors, either VMware or Virtualbox. I have experience with both. VMware has a very robust product, very commercial feeling product, and I feel that Oracle's Virtualbox is a little less commercialized. It seems to me to be easier to use, and everyone's got their own flavor of ice cream, like I say all the time. This may not be yours, but the first thing you're going to want to decide is VMware or Virtualbox, and you can't install both of them because they both will try to grab onto your network adapter, and then you won't be able to run either one of them. So you have to kind of pick one. Like I said, I like Virtualbox, but that's me. So once we've decided 64-bit or 32-bit, and we've decided, Intel or AMD, and we've decided, Virtualbox or VMware, then we proceed on to this offensive security download page. And this is where you want to get your virtual image from. Now, there are different ways of doing this. Some tutorials out there will tell you to just build up a Cali box and install Cali on the virtual box, okay? And that's absolutely, there's nothing wrong with that. That is definitely one way to do it. I'll show you how to do that in just a second when we get into the actual virtualization part. But these images are pre-built for you. They already have guest editions turned on. They already have a lot of the stuff you're going to need pre-configured. So it works a lot easier, I think, to just download these virtual images that are already pre-loaded. So Virtualbox or VMware, we go down here and we find here's a 64-bit version, here's a 32-bit version. Hopefully you guys are clear on the difference there. And then we just go ahead and download. Now this other thing, the SHA-256 sum, this is something you're probably going to come across in the games anyway, but what it is this is how you verify your download. If for whatever reason your download got corrupted, it didn't download all the way, you're going to have a lot of problems. So once you download that image, then here is the hash. So what I do is I have a program on here on my computer that allows me to just generate a hash. And I may have rebuilt my box since the last games, because it may not be on here now. I do not say it. All right, so another way to do this if you're in Linux is to just run an Md5 hash against that hash value, and if it matches, then that's the correct version. So let's see here. Okay, we're back up. Good. All right, so yeah, you run the hash software against this and verify that your download matches that hash. And then that tells you that your download is complete, and it tells you that it has not been modified in transit. One of the three tenets of cybersecurity, right? Which is integrity. It has not changed. It has not been altered or modified in any form. All right, and when you're working with hacking tools, that's probably a big thing. All right, so here we have two tabs. They're hard to see that they're tabs, but these are the VMware images. These are the VirtualBox images. So I'm going to go ahead and well, I've already downloaded a VirtualBox over here. And then the next thing we'll need to do is go and get VirtualBox. So right here, this first link, Oracle VM VirtualBox, that is exactly what you want. I'm just going to show VirtualBox today. If you are a VMware fan, nothing wrong with that. And you can definitely do it that way also. So VirtualBox 6.0, just mash the big button. Should take you right to the download pages. And if you're running this on Windows or on Mac or even a Solaris, then here's where you grab your VirtualBox image. Okay.
That being
so next
said,
thing, once you've installed that and gone through the basic prompts,
should you just hit the button for install. This one we happen to know is safe, but put on your best cybersecurity skeptical hack when installing tools, especially tools you're only installing for the competition.
And always, always make sure that you're downloading your tools from the manufacturer website, not FileHippo, not CNET, any of those other ones. Make sure you're downloading from the manufacturer websites. All right, so we have Oracle VirtualBox here. Now, once you mash the start button, then you're going to get this. And this is your Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager. I'll just wait for a second for the screen to catch up. Okay, good. All right, so yeah, here it is. Here's your VirtualBox Manager, and as you can tell, there's nothing here. You might have a test VM over here. I think I've already deleted mine out. But your next step would be to go to your download. Let me find it real quick. Oh, and one other thing I might want to mention is don't do this on the day of the competition. Get it set up ahead of time because these downloads can take a little bit of time. They are several gig. And so, you know, depending on the speed of your connection, this is last minute.
Also, you should be practicing in the same environment you're going to play the games. That's why the first practice that we're putting up on the live broadcast for you is building your virtual playground, setting up your environment. It's kind of like when you go to build a new computer in person, you should absolutely clear the workspace, put down, you know, anti-static mats. I know we don't always do it that way, but we all know that is best practice. So it's the same for this. Set up the environment that you're going to be using during the games right now, before we practice any other skills. Set up your virtual environment.
That's right. Thank you. So let's see here. Complete now.
When I click out, it looks like the little penguin toolbox is on top of your head, and it is adorable. All right, my download's almost finished because I'm downloading a fresh copy for you guys. So bear with me just a sec. Well, that downloads real quick. Let's go ahead and go to some comments. I get too far behind here. So for you Windows enthusiasts, remember the WSL option. That way you can run Linux commands on your Windows PC, and plus you get all our certain OffSec tools you need. Great point, Brandon, and I love the WSL. It's one of the tools that I put on for spring of 2018 because I think it just came out at that point and wanted to try something new. What Windows Subsystem for Linux is it is a built-in
subsystem of Windows, just like it says. It allows full access to all of your processor power and RAM, which makes it a little bit different than a virtual box or a virtual machine, I mean, because it shares resources. Now, one really great point is someone had made earlier, which on the comments under my blog, that sometimes the problem of virtual machines is they don't share graphics resources, which can make hash password cracking really, really slow in a virtual machine. So by using the Windows subsystem for Linux, it does actually hook up to all those graphics drivers, and then you can use your graphics power to crack those passwords, and using like John or something like that, and John the Ripper, and it allows you to really chew through those passwords a lot faster. So great point, Brandon. That WSL option, I love it. You can actually get Cali Linux now directly from the Windows Store, which I find is really odd, but it's kind of fun. However, I do want to emphasize that when you do this, you are, didn't I? Yeah, I did.
I was saying, I think we lost connection for a minute. I think the point you were going to make was the same point I was going to hop in and make, and that's when you're not in a virtual machine, especially for new competitors, there's no reason to be outside of a virtual machine. For me, if you're not in a virtual machine, it's like, can I make the analogy that it's kind of like unprotected sex?
It's like swimming. Okay, I was gonna say swimming without a life preserver. Try to keep a little PG, Kate.
Yeah, but it's essentially taking a risk that isn't necessary. It might not be as fast, but it means that you have to be better and more selective in what you do, and more purposeful and have stronger intention. So I played the games a long time. I started playing in fall of 2015. That was my first NCL season. And once I learned to build a virtual machine, we don't need to talk about how long that took. But once I learned to build a virtual machine, I do not compete on my host machine, even though, I know how the challenges are created. I know that the challenges can be safe. John and I competed together in other competitions where we're not assured that the content is going to be safe, that it couldn't mess up my computer, that it couldn't, end up causing vulnerabilities on my home network when I take that computer back home. It's really unnecessary risk to not do competitions in a virtual environment.
Okay, so going to these comments real quick, I saw one that we missed, which is, what do you think about avoiding the virtual machine performance problems from antivirus tools? That is a really great point. You actually kind of do bog down your system with a lot of that stuff. However, I think you trade off the performance in a virtual machine, because a virtual machine is not going to have 100% of your CPU or 100% of your RAM capability. It's going to have a portion designated to it. So it's almost a wash there. I don't think you're going to get too much of a performance boost, but certainly if you're running a lot of that kind of stuff in your virtual machine, then you're going to see all kinds of performance issues.
I want to show this comment because, real talk, I contacted the IT department of my company because I couldn't make my virtual machines work because I did not have virtualization enabled in my BIOS. Honestly, that might be the dumbest call I've made at work.
Well, no, and it's a very easy thing to overlook. I know I had to do it also on my machine, and I thought I had it enabled, not default off. So a lot of machines do default this off, and getting into the BIOS is scary, right? I mean, it's something that not everyone has done, and it certainly seems like it's going out of the box, of doing. But yeah, when you reboot your machine and you hit that F2 or that delete and go into that BIOS, that's what you're looking for, and it's usually under Intel or something like that. You want to turn that on. Great comment, Kevin, and thanks for the.
Yeah, what's sad is that I knew that this existed, and I still couldn't figure it out. So, I mean, that's just a really great example. I'm pretty sure that phone call was relatively recent, and I'm a working professional. you know, we all struggle with things, and that'll happen to you in the games too. You'll run into a challenge that someone else might think is dead easy, and you might struggle with it, and you know, it's because you're missing the tiniest little fact. And you know, we all grow through our failures. John, how are your downloads looking?
They're coming along. We got about 3 minutes to kill. So let's go to another comment here real quick about teaching yourself. And I want to emphasize how important that is. The first 2 times I did National Cyber League, I kind of flew solo on it. I was Googling everything. And I think that's a skill that you learn in the games. And certainly a skill that to your success is being able to being able to do your own research and the tutorials, read a lot of articles. You know, you've got to get comfortable doing that because sometimes you just don't have the resources, personnel or people-wise, to go to. But that is where these community organizations like a cyber club or something like that become very, very important. And I know that the games where I've just been frustrated and I needed to vent, and so I would call up Kate and I'd be like, you know, this challenge is kicking my butt, and you know, without revealing anything, she could kind of just empathize a little bit, and that helps. You know, being able to have someone say, "Oh, you're doing all the right stuff. You just need to keep doing it," right? And
yeah. And occasionally someone to go, you know, oh yeah, that's an interesting approach. And that was usually my indicator of, wow, that's a rabbit hole you don't want to go down. But just sort of, we would mostly just vent at each other. There were times like, I hate network traffic. I'm not, me and Wireshark are not friends, guys. Like, I don't even want to be on the network traffic show. Like, when we have that coaching show, I'm trying to make sure that I am not involved with that show. That's how much I love network traffic. So I would call John and be like, I am staring at the right packet. This is the packet. And I would swear and cuss and, you know, throw a temper tantrum. And he would just be laughing because I would be staring at the answer. I would screen share with him. And he would just do that annoying freaking laugh. Because you know what, John, I love you with all my heart, but when you laugh when I'm mad, it's like, ah. And I'm sure I've done the same to you. But I'd be staring at it, and I would screen share, and it would be on my screen, and I would be like, this is the right packet. I know it's the right packet. And he would have everything he could do to, like, keep the answer in, because we both are, you know, we value our integrity. So a lot of times we would sit there, and we weren't trying to get answers from the other person. It was literally just to, like, scream about how frustrating it is. And that was probably the only thing that kept us sane a couple of seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am digging into the archives here because I know I've already got this downloaded, so I'm just going to find it here. This is why live demos don't work. But, okay, it just jumped up. You know, Microsoft time, how it goes from like 3 minutes to 17 minutes to 15 minutes to 2 hours. It's doing that right now. It's kind of bouncing around a little bit. So I want to talk about a couple things real quick while I'm still waiting on this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add a basic virtual machine here using the new. All right, so what we're doing, actually download, here you can actually a Solaris OS 2 Mac OS, and then you can download all different versions, right? So if you wanted a Windows 7 version, or even Windows 7 version is a great thing to do if you need a target, because we all know that MS08 -067 vulnerability that is easy to exploit, and it gives you that practice doing it, right? So sometimes you will want a deliberately insecure image that you can run in a Virtualbox that way. This is not something you ever want to open up to the internet, but it emphasizes why you want it as a virtual machine. So I want to cover that. And then here you're just going to go to Linux. Here's Red Hat. Then there's also Ubuntu. That's another really common distribution out there. Debian. Now Debian is what Cali of. So some people, if you're going to install this from scratch, will use the Debian, and all this screen does, is create the environment for the operating system on it. So it's not like we already have, all these Windows versions downloaded and ready to go. What we have is this will set up all the hardware of the, background and everything that it needs in order to run that type of an operating system. So here we can choose the memory size. Now this is going to be dedicated memory. This is really important when you are doing virtual machines. If you don't have a lot of RAM in your system, you can tell I've only got about 16 gig here. So if I give it 12 gig, your system is going to be so slow, I can't even use it. So you need to find a number that kind of works on your machine. Now, luckily on Cali and on some of the Linux boxes, I find 4 gig to be plenty. And so we'll just go give it 4 gig and it'll be happy. Next thing is a virtual hard disk, right? You can actually use an existing virtual hard disk. This is useful if you want to connect to something that you've already done before. But right here, we're just not going to do it because all that's already set up. So, okay. And then that brings you to this nice screen here. And there's one thing on here that I definitely want to call your attention to. First of all, you can see 64-bit chosen the options. And then you can see that there's a 16 meg of displays all it's going to get. That's why when someone was saying before it doesn't use graphics resources, it doesn't. There's not an option here to use my graphics card, which is card. Then storage, remember that I did not add storage on here, but what you're going to do is an optical drive on here. This will allow you to boot a live CD or use a CD. I'm going to do this install from scratch. Cover with on the network. Now the network and the first one is NAT. So network address traffic, right? So wait, is that? I'm sure I'm screwing that acronym up somehow, but basically what it is your virtual machine will have a private IP address. That means that it is not able to see the internet is not able to see it. Everything has to go through your host adapter to get to the real internet. So that makes it so the netcat session or something in there that is listening or able to connect to from the outside will not connect if you're running it under NAT. So NAT is a good safe option if you really want that sandboxed environment. Now, if you want to set this to a bridged adapter, what this does is it actually gives your Virtualbox a regular IP space that can be connected to from the outside. This has been really good for me before when I was doing a SANS challenge. I did the SANS Holiday Hack Challenge, and you had to actually have an opening listening port for your reverse shell to come back into. So you could use a bridged adapter for that if you want, and have a machine that is able to be seen on your network. So if you're on your host and you're on your virtual machine, the two can see each other. You can set up like a shared drive between the two or a network drive, and that way anything you save in your virtual machine, you can actually see on your host machine. And that's really, really important. You will find out when you're doing the games. There are times where you need to go back in artifacts. You need to download the packet capture file. You need to download the steganography image that you're working on, something like that. And since the Virtualbox doesn't have access to the internet, if you're running it NAT mode, then you have to download that on your host machine and then put it on some sort of a share that your Virtualbox can see. Does that make sense? I hope that's making sense out there. But yeah, sharing those digital artifacts instead of downloading them twice, it's one strategy or another. It all kind of depends. Privacy Pupper's back for a little bit of a debut, and I'll take a breath.
Privacy Pupper has a question. Oh, Privacy Pupper apparently just has quizzes. Oh, so what do they need to know as far as protecting themselves during the game? Because obviously we recommend that they compete in the competition.
Network address translation. Thank you, David. I knew I was messing that acronym up, but yes, absolutely.
If they want their virtual machine to connect to the NCL game so that no files are opened on their host, which is what I recommend, which bridge should they use in that case?
I think I've lost my audio completely.
Can you hear me? Hi, John? John? Okay, I'll disappear. So here's how good our platform works. I'm going to give John a call on the phone because I don't know how else to let him know that you guys can still hear him. So let me buzz him.
I've got audio back.
Oh, I was going to literally call you. So this is why we're looking at changing platforms, because we don't want to keep losing connection and not being sure who can hear. Can you stop? And we want to make sure that we can hear you, you can hear us. You know, it's frustrating when this happens. It's frustrating for you guys. It's frustrating for us. So join us next week when we try out our new stuff. But Privacy's pupper question was, in black and white terms, if you want to do the entire competition from your virtual machine without any other like files on your host machine, which bridge should we use?
You are definitely going to want to use your bridged adapter at that point, because that'll allow you access to the internet. You can load all this stuff onto your virtual disk, and then the only thing about that is when you close that session, when you destroy that virtual machine, anything you've downloaded to that virtual machine gets destroyed also. So if you ever want to go back and kind of document some of the answers you had a hard time with, or save this challenge for later because I wasn't able to solve it during the games, then you're going to want to make sure that you don't delete that session, or that you save that information off to a local drive or something before you completely blow it all up. I learned that the hard way one year. I had written kind of a things I should have known document, and I had it running in the background, completely blew it away, and had to start all those answers from scratch in my head. So that was one of those oof moments.
So John, at this point, they're almost there. Their virtual machine is only set up. Almost set up. I don't know why I said only.
Yes.
What are the next steps to get their Cali running for the competition?
Okay, so if you are actually doing this, building it from scratch, you'll go ahead and hit start here, and create this in just a second because I got all the video software running alongside this.
Privacy Pupper is ready for it.
Okay, and this is it. This is your virtual machine. So you'll see here that it could not read from the boot medium because I didn't install a virtual hard disk, and so it really literally has nothing on here right now. But if I wanted to, I could go into this optical drive, and then here I would attach the Cali image that I downloaded to install, or my Windows image, or whatever operating system you're wanting to do, and then you would be able to launch a virtual CD-ROM, and from the CD-ROM you could do an install onto this virtual machine. This is a machine. This is just like an actual, type machine that you're going to be able to interact with. We're going to want to capture, of course, our mouse movements and stuff like that inside the machine. So that's what it's all about. So yeah, it's this is the same thing as if you had a little tiny monitor on your monitor.
Privacy Pupper has another question. She wants to know, how do you take a snapshot once you've installed your operating system and you've got it all? I know, I asked. Now that you've got your operating system all set up and you're ready to go, how do you take a snapshot? So if things go critically wrong, you can roll back to this point.
That's a great question. And I did mention that also in my blog, so thank you for bringing that up. So what you're going to do is go to the Machine tab here, and then you can just do a take snapshot. So once you've got everything up and running, every time you've got all of the operating system set up the way you want it, go ahead and take that snapshot. That way, when you have to recover something because a tool messed it up or happened unexpectedly where you can't boot back into it, then you just restore that snapshot there and be good to go. Now, the other parts of that, of course, is recovering the snapshot, right? And from here, you just go to discard your save state. And when you do that, it'll actually revert back to the a snapshot taken. You can go in here and manage your, you'd be able to take them here if you wanted to. This is all the machine snapshot. And then from here, you'd be able to make a clone of it or delete it, or you can restore back to that. So you could have actually several different machine states here. Now, there was a National Cyber League challenge at one point that required some really critical timing. And so what I did was I took several different snapshots, and that way I could always go back to some system time in order to replicate the time factor that I needed for a reverse engineering challenge. So there's some really cool stuff you can do with snapshots, and so that's definitely something a tool to keep in your back pocket. So we got 1 minute left on this download, and then we'll be able to actually do an import. Oh, okay. So
another thing on this screen that's really important to capture is the clone technique. So what I do is when I build my VMs for a new season, I actually have a default first install that I never ever touch. I don't even revert back. I just clone the preset up that I already created, and I play the games on that clone. And then, I take snapshots throughout the competition, but then I don't have to rebuild the same VMs every season, because every season I'm building 2 VMs. I'm building a Cali and I'm building a Windows 7 with all of the firewall permissions disabled.
All right. The comments getting a little light out there. Either I'm doing a really bad job. Nobody has questions out there? I want to make sure that this is coaching and not just training.
Don't see anything new coming in. I mean, maybe they're not with us anymore, and we should just end the broadcast here.
Maybe it's just you and me?
If anybody's out there? I mean, we can hang out and talk. We do this all the time. John and I actually train together. This is how we sort of bounce off of each other. I think we've never been in the same state yet, have we?
No, we've tried. A couple times we've been close, when we were at different cons. But, I think that's our best bet, is probably to meet at some convention at some point.
It'll happen. So Pat has the question. So you build a Windows 7. Where do you get the VM image? It's a good question. I don't know. I've copied the same ones for a very long time. I think it might still be on my student license from when I was a student. I should look into that and probably fix that.
So I do have the download finished. And I have to kind of apologize a little bit to Jennifer. She's been asking a lot about Raspberry Pis, and I really, really am excited, and I want to get into that. I promise I will give you some space to do that. Give me just a second to go through this next demo, then we'll go over to the Raspberry Pi stuff, okay?
I turn off my firewalls on the, I want to just grab this really quick. I turn off the firewalls on the Windows 7 so that Kane works, because that's my favorite tool. No other reason. That's how I make it work. It's not a good reason, but it's how it works.
So a really good question here on Windows 7, where you get the virtual machine image. So this is one exactly that you're going to have to build. Just like the process I just went through where you hit new, and then you go ahead and set up that environment. You can actually get, especially as a student, go to the Microsoft website, and you can download a 180-day trial copy of Windows 7 or any of their Windows software, including Server, and that way you can download a something just for the competition, because you're not going to necessarily need to get a full license for it if you're just going to use it for a weekend. Now, another place to get images is off of VulnHub, V-U-L-N-H-U-B. These are vulnerable images, and there are tons of Windows 7 examples with SMB open or different ports open, or especially like they just announced today that there's a 20-year-old bug in all Windows systems where if you have any kind of a remote desktop connection, like open to the internet, they can just exploit the heck out of it. So, I would just go to the Microsoft site, download one of those student evaluation copies or a trial version, and just use that for the weekend if you were wanting just a target to practice against or something like that. Great question, Pat. All right.
So, John, you said your VM's ready to go. Let's.
It is, yeah. So I'm going to hit the import button. And under my downloads here, I'm going to choose the Kali Linux 2019.2 VirtualBox that I just downloaded. All right, and as you come through here, you'll see all the product information populates. Here you can actually set any of the options you want yourself. A couple are locked down. Like it'll give you 4 cores on your CPU and 2 gig of memory. These are minimums. After this import is finished, you can go in and turn those up higher, directly install your virtual machine with these options, which are in order to make things work. And you'll notice at the very end, include only NAT, network adapter, MAC addresses. So this has to do with all the networking portion of it, but basically it would allow your network adapter, your virtual network adapter, to be able to, I'm not sure what's going on there. I think it's because I just deleted that one. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and import. And yeah, it's setting up with the environment now. So it's going to have those 4 cores. It's going to have 2 gig of RAM. It's going to have all of this stuff kind of set up for you. It'll take just a minute. Well, so it's 10 minutes. Hopefully it doesn't take quite that long. I do have an SSD drive, and I want to recommend that to anybody that's out there, especially anyone doing virtual machine. They are so much faster at this process, and you're not going to regret it. They're coming down in price. I think you can get 1 terabyte now for about $75. So, look out for those deals and get yourself an SSD for the competition. It's just, especially if you're running virtual machines.
So what is it doing at this step? What is the processing power lag here?
So it is actually setting up a virtual machine. What it's doing is it is going through and saying, I want 4 cores. I'm going to build a virtual network adapter. I'm going to create a portion of your hard disk, which is going to be your virtual hard drive. It's allocating all the resources for RAM and CPU usage. It's doing all that stuff for you, so you really don't have to worry about it. All you have to do is hit that import button, next, finish, let it do its thing.
Now, for anybody who might not have realized up until this point, we've been talking a lot about the image and where we get the ISO. Did I make that up?
ISO,
9 o'clock,
that's correct.
Guys. I run out of steam right about 9 p.m. I'm sorry. I'm getting too old for this. And I'm sure we have a lot of players who are older than me, but I can't be doing it. Yeah, so what are these images that we downloaded, like the Cali? How did we get Cali? What did we download from Cali.org? I don't think we explained what those were.
Oh, okay.
A little. Yeah.
So, okay, so to recap real quick, the first thing you're going to need is a hypervisor. To get a hypervisor, you have to choose from different hypervisors that are available. The 2 that are supported most widely are going to be your Virtualbox and your Vmware. So choose one. Go to Cali.org. You're going to go to download Kali Linux.
So what are we downloading when we download Kali Linux?
So go down here to this VirtualBox version. Go to the offensive security. Already has everything.
Oh, guys, look.
So you don't have to necessarily worry about filling the settings or anything.
Our other player ambassador.
Hey, it's one of our other player ambassadors.
And she completely agrees with John that an SSD makes a huge difference. As somebody who saw Gina's computer before and after, if Gina could compete well in the competition using the device that she did for her first season, anyone can do well in the competition. I don't know how that thing made it through the whole season. It was really impressive, and I think I was just as excited as she was when she got a new laptop. So
I
it's
definitely
not
agree. I
about
mean,
your hardware.
yeah, and if you're really lacking in hardware, there is always the option of putting this in the cloud and using someone else's hardware. DigitalOcean has really, I think they give you, I can't remember what their package is anymore, but you get free time on one of their cloud platforms. You can actually build a certain amount of droplets, pass a certain amount of traffic before they actually start charging for it. But also Amazon does student credits, and they have quite a bit of free availability also if you want to put this in an Amazon cloud also. So you can actually run a lot of this stuff from the cloud if you don't have a very powerful laptop.
Justin liked the tip to create a fresh install and clone it every time. Yeah, that's what I did. I made it once, and then I've never looked back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gina agreed that her old laptop was a struggle and that she does not miss it. Gina, I don't miss it. As your former coach who watched you struggle, it really is one of those stories where it proves that you can do well in the competition no matter what device you are on. I think I could do more on my phone that season than Gina was able to do on her laptop, and she still did really well in the competition.
So I see people are still with us, even though it's 9:05 my time. So I guess I will continue to go on. The good news is we've reached the end of the road. Here I've got my Virtualbox is all imported, and literally the only thing that is required now is that I start this thing. So from here, I can just why am I still in snapshots? There we go. Just hit the start button. And now we're actually creating this virtual machine. Now keep in mind this is Windows, because this is magic. I'm going to show you here that I'm going to be running Linux on Windows. And I got an error.
Well, West Coast people, we're already halfway done with our workday when you guys go to work. So there's that. As somebody, I do consulting, so I work with people across both coasts, and it gets interesting because the West Coast joins us just as we're all going off to lunch, so it's kind of nice.
Okay, so I do have an error here, which is actually a somewhat common error, and I was just trying to click through it because I was kind of in a hurry. But let's take a step back, as you may get this error also, and I definitely want to make sure that we understand what's going on here. So it says here this Oracle Virtual Machine VirtualBox extension pack. Now, when I installed this VirtualBox Manager, I did not install the extension pack. By not having the extension pack, it does not let me do USB 2.0. Because the actual virtual machine that we imported has USB 2.0 set up in it, it's not able to actually use the USB 2.0 ports because it doesn't know how. So we need to download this Oracle Virtual Machine VirtualBox extension pack. Luckily, we can actually do that. There used to be an option right here. It must not be in this newer version. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix this problem real quick. We're going to go to
I'm just going to take a second to appreciate Fred's comment
here,
because, yeah, this is really
pack,
what I
go directly to virtualbox.org.
There's a little bit of lag back and forth.
So this is where I showed you before the VirtualBox.
Switching platforms. Fred said, set up your VMs well in advance. And really, guys, we can't stress that enough. That's why this was our first practice. And if you look at my coaching guide or anything I write, this is what I recommend you do. Very first practice. I don't care if it takes the whole practice. I don't care if people get bored. Make sure your whole team has your virtual machine set up. This is such a critical step. As you can see, We're troubleshooting it. It's not always easy. I mean, John, you create virtual machines for a living. Like, that is your job, right?
Yeah, I mean, I work on virtual ranges and work on a lot of virtual stuff all the time. So you would think I would know this stuff, but yeah, we use a lot of VMware at work. Like I said, it's a very commercial, that kind of thing. And VirtualBox, I feel like, is definitely more home user grade. But okay, you look at the website here, and just so you know, it's a
set them up in advance, because even the professionals like John struggle because these aren't always as intuitive as we'd like. But once you get them set up, they're the best tool you have in your toolkit.
Right, and to that point, when we did National Cyber League at Tidewater Community College, we actually had a rig check day, and it was usually a week before the competition, and that way everyone would bring in their rigs, and if they were laptops or whatever, we'd walk through all the different troubleshooting, get everyone's rig ready to go, and make sure that everyone was ready for the competition. As coaches, I really think that that's an important thing to do for your teams. Is it gives them a sense of preparedness for going in, that they're, ready to go. The other thing is I want to emphasize the gymnasium. Gymnasium is the time to try all this stuff out, get all of this stuff working, get all the tools installed that you're going to need for the challenges. Use your, use it to your best advantage.
I don't think I've installed anything in like 3 seasons. I swear, I have the exact same machines that I use every season because I'm really lazy and I already got it set how I want it set.
So here I'm downloading this Oracle VirtualBox extension pack. And Fred, no, I'm not on dial-up. Thank you very much. I do have a son, and he may be gaming in the other room.
Where we've got to desperately... This is why we're switching. So yeah, all of your complaints have been heard, my friends. We're trying to make it better. Join us next week to watch how much we kicked these troubles behind.
All right, so I'm installing that virtual machine. Well, if you can see that, let me see. We're installing that extension pack, and now it's installed successfully. So we're going to try to start this thing up again.
Wait, can I sing that on here? I don't know if we'll get in trouble, actually.
Oh, I don't know. Be copyrighting
I didn't
something, I'm sure. All right.
Pat, we just want to appreciate you with us. We love having you guys. Again, there's a lag, so we're talking over each other. Again, this is why we're switching. And we appreciate that you recognize our efforts. We really do, put our heart and souls into creating this content for you guys. We're sorry that sometimes, things don't go according to plan, but we appreciate you sticking it out with us. And Justin commented that it's nice. What did you call your computer check day? John?
I'm losing it.
Oh, I said, what did you call your day where everybody brings in their computer to get it checked to make sure it's good to go? Oh, no. John, I don't want to do this show solo.
I have audio. Back again.
I said, what do you call the day where all of your computers get brought in for a health check?
Rig check. I think that's what we called it.
Oh, somebody put it in the comments. I could not understand what words you were saying. Whew.
Jennifer.
I thought you called it a big check day, and I was like, that is a big check. We should make a big checklist. But it was not a big BIG. It was an RIG, which makes a lot more sense. Also, thank you to Berlin, who also helped me here tonight. John, are you listening to the broadcast on Facebook Live instead of the
Okay, so I think what's going on here is actually hogging some of my resources. So I want to show you that this works, you know, that everything is running smoothly, and I'm going to shut this down so we can actually get back to the video. That's what I have to do. That's what I have to do because I have no audio.
So John, I'm going to disappear and let you take it away until we get to the end, and then I'll join you for the sign-off.
Okay. All right, so when shutting down a virtual machine, it's going to ask us to save the machine state or to send a shutdown signal or power off the machine. This is literally, if you hit this last one, that is just like hitting the power button on a real machine. It is just going to shut it down. So without, you know, doing it nicely. So you can actually corrupt your machine if you do it this way. The other thing is here, send the shutdown signal. That's more of a soft reset where you're sending a friendly, hey, shut me down kind of message. And then saving a machine state, what that is it actually is taking it's actually taking all of the current state of the machine, and it's just saving it. So this is just like a snapshot, really, in that you can, when you turn this machine back on, it's going to come right back to this state again in the exact place that it's at. Like I said, I've used this before in troubleshooting and actually doing certain types of competitions where you can save that machine state, and then you can always relaunch it at any time. So in this particular case, I don't care. This is a throwaway session, so I'm just going to power it off. All right, so I'm going to give my internet a little bit of a second to catch up to all of this. I hopefully turn off some of these tools and get some of our bandwidth back. Again, you know, Kate said it a few times. This is why we're moving to a different platform. Facebook Live is really useful for the comments. We love the comments. So we're going to find a way to make that work still. But for right now, this is kind of the best thing we've got going on. And we really appreciate your patience with all the technical issues. Live demos, you know, they're always difficult. But we managed to get a virtual machine imported, turned on. We worked through some troubleshooting issues. So I feel like this is definitely a win. Kate, can you hear any of that? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm here. It just takes a minute. So John's going to probably pop back on in a second when he hears me talking. John, I think you're catching the same delay that all of our users catch. So I'm going to go ahead and sign us off for the tonight. If you guys have any questions, we will be back next week. Like I said, we're on our new platform. So we still want to hear your comments and your questions. It's just going to be through a different method. It won't be through Facebook anymore. Because you guys see, like, we can prepare. I did all the things you guys told me. I got a new camera, I got a new microphone, I got a headset. Like we've done it all, and we're still just losing connection. And it's really just the platform that we're on. So we are switching platforms. We're gonna send you guys
Before you sign off, Kate. Sorry, don't interrupt. Before you sign off, should I get my dog?
Yes.
Okay, give me just second, I'll go get my dog.
Well,
wait. Let's get a vote here. Do you want to see my dog or do you want to see my cat?
I mean, we know my answer. The first 5 comments will be the votes, cat or dog, and you can't choose both.
My cat's pretty cute, I gotta say.
I mean, you did already see a dog tonight, so that would
Oh,
be
yes. Jennifer, absolutely. You can continue to ask those questions on Twitter.
Yes, let me put up everybody's handles. I have those all in one thing.
Or if you would prefer, what we can do is you can actually, Kate, does your blog allow comments yet?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what you can actually go onto my blog, which is on Kate's, CryptoKate.wordpress. Let me get that right. It's CryptoKate.wordpress.com. That's CRYPTOKI. All right. Thank you to all our viewers. I think that was Zena saying good night. And wait a few minutes, and this thing should record so that you can always go back and catch any segments that you might have missed, or play them back for your other club members if they're struggling trying to set up a virtual machine. Thank you.
Have a good night, guys. Happy hacking.